It's another edition of Time About the Movies, and it's September 21st, 1990. And we've got 6 movies to look at, starting off with a classic, ending with a classic, and then 4 movies in between that we'll delve into as we go along. But let's start with the first of the 6 movies here. And it is a classic in every single word. It's amazing that at the end of this decade, in the 90s, we were still talking about this movie as one of the greatest achievements of the decade. And of course, what Martin Scorsese did in the 80s, starting off with Raging Bull in 1980, and that becoming one of the best films of the decade, some may say the best film of the decade. And that here we have another one here. It's Martin Scorsese's classic gangster film, and that is, of course, Goodfellas. And unfortunately, not too long ago, we lost Ray Liotta, and there's nothing really more to say about his performance in this movie. It's an incredible performance he gives in this film. It's one of the highlights of the film. This movie just overall is a friggin' masterpiece, man. 1990 had a lot of gangster movies, set in the past, movies that very much like this one, that this movie really defied the expectations of a lot of people had, because this was a year that we had a Godfather sequel, and this one trounced that one considerably as the best gangster movie of the time, and it just shows how Martin Scorsese never really lost his touch. There was a couple of times in the 80s where his streak kind of not really ended, but he didn't make as good of movies that he did in the past, like Taxi Driver, Raging Bull. Still make good movies, but not to those high levels. But this movie comes out, and it's a masterpiece in every sense of the word. The acting is great. Like I said, Ray Liotta is very good here. Joe Pesci is great in this. Lorraine Bracco is great. So is Robert De Niro, not Robert Downey Jr., Dennis Farina, Paul Sorvino, just some of the greatest actors who ever lived at the time worked on this movie, and it's just an amazing achievement. Just so many great things about this movie, from the cinematography, like the scene sequences in this movie. Just if you can't listen to "And Then He Kissed Me" without thinking about this, or the opening of Adventures in Babysitting. But when I think of that song, I think of this scene. I think of that scene where Ray Liotta is taking Lorraine Bracco through the kitchen and the back of the kitchen in the restaurant, and getting the front row seat and everything. It's just this one singular shot, and it's just so well done. It's just a phenomenal movie in every sense of the word. It never lets up. It never falls off. It's just a fantastic, well-made movie. Anytime it's on TV, it's one of those ones that you just have to watch over and over again. It gives you everything you could possibly ask for, and then some. It's one of Scorsese's greatest movies. It's one of my favorite movies of all time. It's Goodfellas. Need I say more? So, let's go ahead and move on to the next movie, and that is Gene Hackman and Anne Archer in Narrow Margin. So Narrow Margin is, of course, a remake of the 1952 film noir of the same name, and it has Gene Hackman and Anne Archer, directed by Peter Hyams, who had done 2010, the year we made Contact, Outland, Running Scared, The Presidio. He would later do stuff like Stay Tuned, Time Cop, Sudden Death, The Relic, End of Days. He's been a mixed bag director over the years, and this is a movie that's very much a mixed bag. The performances, I think, definitely carry it over. The concept of most of the action taking place on the train is very good, but it's a very formulaic script. It really is, and like I said, it's a very formulaic script. You can kind of tell where it's going to go. You can tell where it's going to end up going in pretty much every aspect. It's a very predictable movie, and that's a shame, because the performances do carry it over to a little bit, to where I say it's not the worst movie ever, but it's better than I think it should have been, considering how lackluster the script was. So, I mean, yeah, overall, it's an okay movie. It's one I wouldn't rush out to see again anytime soon, but it's fine for what it is. With that said, let's go ahead and move on to the next movie. Leonard Nimoy's follow-up to 3 Men and a Baby. Gene Wilder in Funny About Love. I should have said his comedic follow-up, because he directed The Good Mother, which was a drama with Diane Keaton and Liam Neeson in it. But Funny About Love is definitely a major comedic step down from 3 Men and a Baby. It's very lackluster. In fact, Burt Reynolds pretty much kind of made a movie similar to this 10 years prior. I can't remember. I think it was called Paternity, but it's pretty much that same plot. With instead of Burt Reynolds, it's Gene Wilder. And Gene Wilder can be very funny, and you also have Christine Lottie, who's a great actress. But the comedy they're just giving in here just doesn't work at all. It's very sitcomish. It's very sitcomish. Nothing about this feels like it's necessary for a big screen motion picture. And there's just nothing about it that really makes it stand out on its own. It's a very forgettable movie. It showed up on many people's worst of the year list in 1990, and you could really see why. Despite the fact that Wilder and Lowry are trying their best here, there's just nothing really funny here. They try to make I think a movie like Knocked Up does a pretty good job of showing the pros and cons of being of pregnancy and all that. Like this movie just feels like everything that happens is going to be A-okay. Nothing bad's going to happen to you, all that kind of stuff. It's just like, that's not how pregnancy works. I mean, it's just like I've seen much better comedies about pregnancy that actually tackles those aspects, but this really doesn't work at all. This is a very bland movie that doesn't even feel like a real movie. It feels more like a sitcom than an actual movie. It makes no sense to do a movie like this, especially with a guy like Leonard Nimoy, who proved how good of a comedic director he could be with 3 Men and a Baby. Just a good director overall with what he did with Star Trek 3 and 4. And this was part of his downfall. I mean, after this, he made another movie that wasn't received very well, Holy Matrimony, and then he never directed another movie after that. And it's just a shame that had to be. So, yeah. So that's Funny About Love. There ain't nothing really funny about it, personally. Let's go ahead and move on to the next movie, which is The Boyfriend School, a.k.a. Please Don't Tell Her It's Me. Yeah, when I saw this on Box Office Mojo, the title was actually The Boyfriend School because the script is based off of that book, but the trailers and everything else has it called Don't Tell Her It's Me. And this basically just goes back to to what I said about Funny About Love. It's just a sitcom premise blown up for the big screen. But this one I think was even worse. This is just like, wow, like asking Steve Guttenberg to put on that kind of an accent and try to be something different. It's just like, ugh, just no, whoa, you really screwed that up big time. It's just, man, this is a bad movie. This is a really bad movie. Like, I mean, wow, this was rough to get through. And even with the cast it has, Shelley Long, Jamie Gertz, Kyle MacLachlan, Matt Janamick, Beth Grant. I think it's Madgen and Mick. I think that's what I meant to say. But you get the idea. Like, this is a premise that you've seen in all these different romantic comedies. It all ends up in the same way. It's going to end in a cliched ending. It's going to end with the two getting back together after the third act breakup, and it's just nothing enjoyable about this movie. At least Funny About Love was trying, but this doesn't feel like it's trying. Even that trailer, where were the good laughs in there? You're supposed to put the good laughs in the trailer, but it's just like, I didn't laugh once. It's just not a good movie. Just not a good movie whatsoever. So anyway, on to the next movie, and the next movie is The Tall Guy with Jeff Goldblum in it. You can see this movie also has Emma Thompson, Rowan Atkinson. The director of this is Mel Smith, who would later go on to direct Radioland Murders and also the Bean movie. Richard Curtis, who would later write several classic movies such as Bridget Jones's Diary, Notting Hill, Love Actually. So there's a very good, talented group of people here, and the movie is pretty fun itself. It's very funny. It is kind of formulaic, but it has enough good performances all around to make it stand out on its own, where you can really get into the laughs in the movie, and it is very funny. It's very funny. It is risque at times. Like you saw, I had to cut part of that because I thought there was actually a trailer for that a long time ago. I remember seeing for this where they actually did show her boobs, Emma Thompson's boobs, and I thought they were about to show that off, so that's why I cut that off. But it just wasn't there. But you get the idea. This movie, it earns the R rating here, and it's a fun time. It's a really fun movie. It's Jeff Goldblum doing what Jeff Goldblum does best, and that's kind of the fun thing about Jeff Goldblum. He can be very funny doing his normal stick, and while it's not all over this movie, he is very likable in here. Most of the people in this are very likable. It's an overall really enjoyable movie. Kind of an underrated movie. If you haven't seen The Tall Guy, if you like this type of comedy from Richard Curtis, this is definitely going to work for you. It's definitely a very well-made film. I'd say definitely check it out if you can. And we'll wrap it up with maybe the second best movie that came out this weekend, and that is the Coen Brothers' Miller's Crossing. So you have Goodfellas, which is a fantastic crime film of its own kind, and then you have Miller's Crossing here, which is just as good. Maybe not better than Goodfellas, but it's just as good. I mean, this is a fantastic crime film, written and directed by the Coen Brothers. You have Gabriel Byrne, Marcia Gay Harden, John Turturro, Albert Finney. Just this great cast all around. Some great moments all throughout this movie. Great cinematography by Barry Sonnenfeld. Just memorable scenes that still hold up to this very day. This is a great movie. It's one that not a lot of people talk about when they talk about the Coen Brothers' great movies, because they had just done Raising Arizona and Blood Simple before this, and then they would have this great decade of great movies, especially in the latter half of the decade. But this is a fantastic movie all around. I mean, John Turturro's performance in this movie is great. It's a great performance that it's over dramatic, but it's not over dramatic where it feels like he's going completely over the top just to win an Oscar. It's not an Oscar bait performance. He's generally giving it his all in this movie, and it shows in that scene in the trailer, and it also shows in that scene in the movie where he's out there begging for his life, and he's just crying out to be alive and not get killed. And it's a great movie. It's a fantastic film. I don't think I need to say anything more about this one. If you have not seen Miller's Crossing, you need to go see it. If you like Coen Brother movies, you're going to love this one a lot. Miller's Crossing, fantastic movie. Need I say more? So with that, we wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies. Next time around, we'll wrap up September with 4 movies, including Matthew Modine, Melanie Griffith, and Michael Keaton in the thriller Pacific Heights. We also have Dark Angel, not the Jessica Alba show, but a different Dark Angel. The sequel to The Last Picture Show, Texasville, and Christopher Walken in King of New York. So we'll have those 4 movies to look at next time around. So thank you guys for watching. And as always, if you want to see more videos like this, check out the playlist on the next page. Check out the previous episode. And I'll see you guys tomorrow for another new episode. So until then, take care.